most climbers I know live in this weird headspace where they climb a lot and climbing is a part of their identity, but they're injured, so they can't really perform the way they want to or think that they should be able to, and maybe unconsciously set their expectations for themselves of what they're supposed to be able to do. And yet they keep trying to climb hard in order to maintain that sense of control, maintain that sense of whether it's power or identity, and all the while still pushing, and either making their injuries worse or at the very least letting them not recover fully. So it's either neutral or negative, the practice of continuing to try to push while still being injured. And the effects that have psychologically are, of course, because your body isn't fully recovered, you still stay in that weird headspace of like trying to get better, knowing you're injured, knowing you should rest, but still trying to push, still trying to climb anyways. I think a lot of people I know that climb are currently experiencing this or have at some point. Something I want to share is an insight that I've learned, and I'm no expert in the field of kinesiology, so please don't take my advice as like truth or coaching advice. Like, go find somebody else who's well more practiced and can give better insight than I can. But something I've observed in the fitness industry lately is this idea of bulletproofing, this idea of looking at tendon science and looking at ways in which research suggests there are like practices or approaches that people can take to improve the strength and health of their tendons. And tendons are something that you don't really think about in most sports until you get into, for example, climbing, because of the amount of force in the nature of climbing is that you just use your fingers and you apply a ton of force on very specific set of muscles that whose capacity for injury is very low, I guess, which I'm trying to say that like it's very easy to get injured in climbing, which I think if you climb, you know. So all I want to share is something simple that I've started to do in my own life, and I've started to see some benefit. Again, please don't take this as truth, and please don't, take this as like, oh, I should necessarily go out and do this and I'm going to solve my problems by doing this. All I'm saying is this is something that I've started to do. I've seen some success so far, and if it's something that you try to incorporate into your own life, I hope that it works well for you as well. So I went out to go solve this problem because I myself have been in that persona of, okay, I'm injured, I like climbing, I can't climb as hard as I want to, or as I feel like I should be able to, and I'm injured and I know I should rest, but man, the gym is just, they just set new problems, and that's where my friends are, and, it's starting to warm up and I want to go out on my projects outside, all of those things that you can talk yourself into doing something that ultimately doesn't help you. So what I did, I went out, I sat down, I thought about, okay, what is climbing? What are injuries? Why do injuries? What is like the origin of injuries? In most cases, injuries are due to overuse. So I thought about, okay, in climbing, what am I doing a lot of? I'm doing a lot of pulling, whether with my hands or in the case of like heel hooks, my legs. Climbing is a very pulling centric sport, just the very nature of it. So I thought about, okay, at a higher level of abstraction, pulling from a muscular movement standpoint is flexion. It's shortening the muscles and tendons while they're being loaded with tension. So what I've started to incorporate is on a day where I'm not climbing, or maybe at the end of a session, I will take a weight. I'll take like a dumbbell, or you can use a suitcase, like whatever you have as a resource. I'll take weight and I will slowly lower it. And what I'm doing is I am allowing my muscles and my tendons to extend under tension, as opposed to when I'm climbing and where I'm doing a lot of use, like if I climb multiple times a week and I'm doing a lot of pulling, simply from a volume, from a number standpoint, I'm doing a lot of pulling and I'm very rarely paying attention to like extension. What I've started to do is I take a weight and I slowly extend it. Sometimes I even just hold it isometrically here for a little bit. You can do the same thing with your legs, because like the knee and the hamstring are basically just the analog of like the elbow and the bicep. And so far, it's this thing where it's not like, oh, I magically started to climb like, V16 overnight because I, took a gallon of milk and did this like 5 times. But from what I can tell, and I don't know how to really put it into words, I've noticed a change. I've noticed just something that feels more secure in my muscles and when I'm actually moving. Again, I am not an expert in this field, so take my advice for what it is, just an observation and just some simple practices that I've taken and started to apply in my own life. I think if there's one thing that I would hope, if you've watched this, is that ultimately me choosing to do this is something that I had to, kind of go out of my own way to start to incorporate into my life. It was something that I had not been doing and then started to do. The inner shift that I saw in myself is what is more important here, not necessarily the action themselves. Of course, the actions are helpful because, or at least so far, they've been helpful for me, but it's more about the perspective shift, the mentality shift of, okay, I love climbing. I want to do climbing for a long time. And so to think about it really in terms of, if I want to do this, engage in this sport for like many years, like being as injury averse and being as thoughtful of how I can approach climbing in a way where not only am I improving and not only getting stronger, but I'm also doing it in a way where I'm paying attention to my body and I'm learning how to take care of it properly. I think that's the shift. That's the real, that's where the real value is, I think, at the end of the day. So hopefully this helps you. Good luck.